name is C. Betty Davis.
And I'm Kerry Davis, and we are proud to present This Postman Collects.
Peter, let me just make sure this is on. Testing. Does it sound like it? It is? You're hearing me. I wanted to start out by asking you, now that this work, because we had that incredible opening a couple of weeks ago, and we didn't really have a chance to talk, but now that you've had an opportunity, you and C. Betty, to see the collection outside of your home, outside of your abode where it's so beautifully installed. I'm still trying to figure out how this work even gets into your home. I haven't figured that out. It almost, when I think about it, and it represents a third of what you own. So I'm now wondering, what's your take on your passion and how it appears to you now?
Well, it's beautiful. It's beautifully done, and I just think, everybody involved who really have an eye to put things together. Me, Betty, as well, we thought that, wow, it looks like so much. And I was thinking that we don't have that large of a home, the house, and again, there's a lot more work there. But to come and see it out, when I walked in, I said, wow, it looks like a museum show, the museum exhibition or something. But it really looks different outside of the home, and I am just really proper lighting. But in the home, it also has its place and a good feel to it. But out here, it's beautiful, and it almost seems at home. I remember years ago, and it was early 80s, when I come to Clark Atlanta University, and this was the library, but the gallery wasn't up here, and I would visit downstairs. I think that's the storage area now, where, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, that's true, and I remember you saying that a couple of weeks ago, and I did not know that, and I don't know what year that was.
Well, it was early, okay. But I just remember being inspired, just so inspired, because when my introduction to African American art was Jacob Lawrence and Romare Bearden. They were in the forefront. That's all I ever heard, and at the time there weren't many catalogs written. Well, it probably was some, but I just didn't know anything about. But
you're right about that in terms of.
But when I come here, I just discovered so much more than Jacob Lawrence and Romare Bearden. Though I love Jacob Lawrence and Romare Bearden, but it was just so many more, just wonderful works. I discovered the works of John Wilson, right here, and. Who later, some years later, maybe 20, 25 years later, I got a chance to meet him, and we became friends. I love those work. Irene Clark, Benjamin Britt. These are names I never heard of. So what that did for me is to, stop looking for big names, and just start appreciating the work just for what it was and who it was. Good work, because I always thought cream will rise to the top anyway, so I wouldn't be afraid. But I said that to say this: I'm so happy for this work to be here, because it seems it's come full circle. I was inspired by what I saw here, and to have our works hanging here, it makes me feel good, really. So we are very happy to share it with this community.
Relative to the idea of how you actually went about acquiring these works, as I was saying a few minutes ago, I constantly hear people who have really strong livelihoods that are compensated very well, say that well, they don't have any art, they can't afford it. Tell me what your thinking was in terms of how you negotiated in your mind how you were going to go about acquiring works by, people, the Howardina Pendell. I mean, we can go down the list. I mean, there are a lot of artists who are not represented here, I dare say. But tell me how you were able to really work that out.
Well, the price of things, the cost of things never really entered my mind as far as how much things can cost. I think what we do now here in the present, we think about the present art market and what things cost now. But before Bill Cosby show came on and you saw the African American work and before the exposure, and I don't know, because I really never bought too much in retail places or that type of thing, galleries. But when I would, search catalogs and just research and through auction houses and find works, I would study an artist's background, what area he grew up in or where he lived. And silly me, when we go to those towns, I think I may be able to find some of those works in those places or in those used bookstores or in those flea markets or this is such a small world, somehow we may bump into the family member of an artist and they think, well, that old picture up there, but it meant a lot to me. And I was able to find some things. And then on my job, just being a postman. Being a postman in a community, you become a friend of families. And you get to know people. I have an identical twin brother, and we used to do a lot of work together where we rake leaves and clean yards. And we may come in for a drink of water, and you see, I didn't know that you even, this particular lady, she went to Fisk University, but she do Aaron Douglas, and she had works and she collected art. So I got a chance. It was just so much exposure, and just through the catalogs, coming here, going to different museums, going to Chicago to the DuSable and those type things. I was just exposed. Once you get that, once you see things, then when you're in the yard sale, you know what you can identify. When you're in the, and that's it. And that's how I found things, just various places, and again, as a postman, I began to meet very interesting people. Some right here, who's here now, sitting in a Sorry. But, artists, I met artists who introduced me to other artists. As I collect their work and things. And then there's the barter. When I left the Air Force, I came back out, and I think it was the Urban League had this carpenter's apprenticeship program. And I joined, and I learned how to, build and make things or do crafts work. And what the part about that, if it rained, you don't work. You don't work, you don't eat. You don't work, you don't get paid. So when the post office called, I had to leave there. But I still had a trade. But that same trade, just talking to certain artists and friends, I learned how to frame artwork. But even more important than learning how to frame artwork, I learned how to care for artwork and how to preserve and conserve artwork. And so, most of the things, I feel as collectors, you should be caretakers of the art. And when the artists feel that, you're taking, it's just an extension of them, but you're taking care of it. And the artists that we bought from, they'll make it affordable for you to have it if they know you'll take care of it.
Okay.
I don't even remember the question now, but
I knew you would be very responsive to the questions that I have. One of the stories that you tell that I really love is the one, well, there's several of them, there are a lot of them, but one of them pertains to the relative of Sidney Poitier, how you came into the Charles White piece there. Would you share that?
Sure. I'm in the post office casing mail. That's what I do. Then I read everybody's stuff that comes right before. I saw this one announcement announcing an auction at the Pew Galleries. It's right at Piedmont and Cheshire Bridge, I think. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, they're no longer in business, or they're no longer in that location. And but they were more of a furniture gallery. They got rid of things. And I read where they were liquidating the effects of Juanita Portier. Then they had in parentheses, former wife of Sidney Portier. In my mind, I'm thinking art all the time. I know Harry Belafonte was a collector of Charles White work, a collector. And I saw it in the Ebony's layout. They had beautiful works by Charles White. Now, Charles White and Sidney Poitier was in a run of films in the 70s all the time. So I figured if Sidney Poitier may have had some work, Harry Belafonte may have had some work, maybe Sidney Poitier did too. So anyway, I just went just to go to see. And just walking around previewing, and they had, mostly, I think they call them snuff bottles, like perfume bottles and fur coats and that type thing. And some art, mostly African art. But I noticed a tube, like a print tube, on a stand. Nobody opened it up, but me being me, curious, I opened the print tube and I rolled out the Charles White piece, and it's in one of the rooms in the gallery, I guess, around front. And it's entitled, "My God is a Rock," dated 1958. Absolutely pristine condition. And I'm thinking while we're sitting there, why didn't they hide this somewhere or whatever? But of course, I rolled it up and put it back in the tube and said, wow, I'm coming to the auction. I am coming. I'd never been to an auction before in my life. And when I came in, it was packed. But most of, I think, merchants in the area were like secondhand shops, whatever. And they had, the bidding started, and I got my little church fan, and I was just waiting. And, we went on, and boom, I got the bid. I was so nervous. I had $2 and a credit card. I did have a credit card, and I went over, and I remember just trembling as I made my transaction. I should have stayed and see could I bid on something else, but I was so excited I left. I stopped the auction, grabbed my thing, and left. As I walked out, a young lady came behind me and she said, "Excuse me, sir, excuse me." She said, "Congratulations on your bid." She said, "I thought I was going to get that." And I said, She said, she introduced herself. I've forgotten her name, but she was the daughter of Sidney Poitier and Juanita Portier. And she said, "I really thought I was going to get that for about $350 or something like that." And I said, "Oh, wow." I was rejoicing, but not at somebody's peril. I felt a little bad, but then I told her about how I really loved Charles White's work, and how, I just went into the whole thing. And she stopped. She said, "You know what? My mother would be so glad that you got that piece." I said, "Well, if you ever want to see it, you're always welcome." And that was that piece. That piece is, I've seen others. It's also known as, that one is solid as a rock. But this one said, "My God is a rock." And every time I look at it, we have it in a certain place. And some of those days I come home and all you hear is, "Mailman, where's my check? You put my mail in the other box," and you did. I can always come home and draw from that. I can always come home. If I'm down, I draw strength from that piece. Love that piece. And they have one here in the Clark Atlanta collection as well.
We do. We certainly do. Well, I want you to talk a little bit about, because this is the other aspect about Kerry and C. Betty in terms of the way that the art is laid out in their home and how it's come to be, to use, I don't know how many heard Theaster Gates last night at Emory, but this idea of creating an altar of culture, a space, within a community that allows people to have these different kinds of interactions. And it seems that your collection has been serving that in terms of influencing the people that you commune with, that you congregate with. So I wanted you to address some of that, maybe the early experiences of observing people, observing your collection.
Well, we do what we do, and as far as collecting, and it's a personal thing or a private thing. I never told anybody I was a collector or we have this art collection, but it was, that's what I did with whatever you call it disposable. You don't have disposable income, but we made a way. But it's a passion, and so our home is full of it. Lacking furniture, but we have art. But I notice people, as they come in, and it would always intrigue me because I'm curious to see what your reaction is, or what your reaction is, or what your reaction is. And people are different, and art is so subjective. Everybody, they gravitate to different things, and it tickles me from time to time as to what comes in. But, I realize that, and it may be family, extended family, friends from the old neighborhood, friends from this neighborhood, and how they prioritize things. A lot of people, and hey, to each his own. Some like the big screen TV, some like the fast car, some. But for them to stop in. But then there were some people who are just trying to eat. And when I grew up, we didn't have exposure to art, not in our home, or we didn't, something we may have seen at school or in a book or something like that. But for them to come in and see it, I realized some of these people will never go to a museum. And, they cute as a bug, but it just never occurred. We're trying to live. But to come in and to see them look at work and examine work and make their comments, and I'm like, wow, these people are really aware of certain things, that's going on, or it may be some kind of political commentary or social commentary piece, but they're sharp, and they may be the youngest or the oldest, but never just had that exposure. And to see children come in with their parents, and these were some of our church group people that where the children were so inspired, but they already had a talent and a foundation, but the parent didn't support them in that area. We all can't play basketball, or we all can't, get that big contract. But if your child has a talent, foster it, nurture it or support it. So, I would hear in conversation, Kerry and Betty got a museum in their house. We could go to Kerry and Betty's. They got, it's a in-home museum. That term they would use, but and then some say, yeah, they got a lot of pictures.
Well, what would you say are some of the challenges unexpected challenges that you've had in terms of acquiring works, maintaining works, maybe in the relationships with artists? What would you highlight in that particular area? There's sort of three different areas. So we're talking about the acquisition of works, the maintaining of works, because you do have a lot of work. And really, and even as the curator, I have to tell you, I'm saying to myself, now, I know that house was not that, I mean, it's a beautiful house now, but it's not palatial. And in my mind, I'm saying to myself, how did I get, where was all this work that I selected? Because it, and then there's, what, 200 more works at least. So my question is, in terms of you amassing this amount, how are you handling that? What have been some of the challenges?
In acquiring work, that's not, I don't see, well, I guess it can be a challenge, but hey, it is what it is. I can only get what I can afford to get. If I never get another piece of art in my life, all is well. So I'm not so pressured into do that. Two, I don't ever want more than I can care for. That's just a disservice. Now caring for. There's a challenge, but just from the onset, I'll start to wrap it properly, store it properly, handle it properly. And
And you said you've learned to do a lot of the framing yourself,
yep.
Which is, because that's a major expense.
Yes, it is. But I get around, and you just like anything else, you try to everybody have their place, but if I can circumvent the middleman, I can go directly and buy molding. Right. I have a chopper, I got a glass cutter, I have a friend that with automatic mat cutter. So you find ways, just find ways to make things happen.
Okay. And Miss C. Betty, you didn't want to participate.
He's good.
Okay, all right. So then, relative to your children, who I've had an opportunity to meet, they both look like they're about 15, and I know they're mature.
Almost twice
children.
the age.
I mean,
yeah.
Cute grandchildren. So, what's been their experience in seeing this work, growing up with this work? What have you observed?
Well, growing up, it was just part of the house. It's just part of the furniture. They see it. There were some things that they liked, they gravitate to. They didn't like so much me taking them to the museum as opposed to, sometimes they did, but there were always better things to do. Right. Playground, riding a bike was much better than going to the museum. But they learned to appreciate it, and I'm so glad that I, got them to continue, because now in their homes, they have artwork. And Carly's collection is largely the Davis collection south or whatever, is just an extension. But she's aware enough to pick, I want a French style, I want a so I want this. So she know what she wants. But they were so proud when we had the opening here. My children, they both sent me the nicest letters and the heart-to-heart talk, and to see their photograph and the catalog. I'm super dad, or we're super parents now. So
that's great. I'd like to open the floor up for some questions. I'm sure some of you have some technical questions and other kinds, so please.
yes.
You said that you didn't know anything about black art. Now, I bought some black art at Walmart. I was surprised. They had the big bins, and I just happened to look in there, and I got quite a few that I framed and I have down my hall in my house. And then we went to Savannah, Georgia, and we found a shop there that we bought a real big picture, a black art picture. And I went to the islands and I brought back a lot of statues. Mm-hmm. So I've been into that,
That's great.
Million places you think they wouldn't have it, they have it.
Oh, okay. Is that a question?
Yeah.
Do you want to respond to that?
Oh.
I mean,
You mean now? That's within the past?
Oh, that's
most
several
recent.
years ago.
Really?
I found it. Yeah, because I was looking for black art.
I probably would never have ventured to Walmart, but that's just me, Most of my art was acquired directly from artists. I really didn't go out to a gallery or retail to get work. And I've never had an art class or anything before in my life. Everything I've ever learned about art was from artists. So I did get a first-hand knowledge, about artwork. But that's great.
What was the first piece you acquired? How did y'all really get started in acquiring? You have one, it's extraordinary, the collection that you have.
You know what? I don't know what the first piece I bought. And I'm gonna tell you, when I first started buying art, I'm sure I don't have it now. And I didn't consider myself a collector. I was buying art. In fact, some of that stuff I bought, I'm sure I gave it away, as a gift or whatever. But I remember some of them. I would say some of the major pieces, and maybe not a major piece, but it was something I really liked, and that was Jacob Lawrence Toussaint Louverture seriograph. But in collecting, you do have to have somewhat of a focus on what you're doing, and that was probably the first piece that I bought that I knew I had a nice piece of artwork.
But now, as I recall, in our earlier conversations, you were saying that it essentially started really as an effort to
just to furnish.
Yeah, to furnish the house and have some type of
some
decor on the walls. But then it became something more at the point that you wanted to see or feel works that were saying something a lot more, something less commercial,
right?
That you might find at a Walmart or one of the other corporate entities. So there's John. John, you were raising. I'll be back to you. Go ahead.
I've been in the art world for quite a while, but there's a level of taste throughout this room that is pretty high. Most of us who start out, we really don't have that kind of an art background. Things we start out with, whether it's the spear on the wall or milk. Right? That's not this. What other resources one could look to find out who the top African American artists are, to begin to see how do you find the Jacob Lawrences and Charles Whites and those folks?
Well, I can only tell you my walk.
Okay.
They have the Swans galleries now and the Treadways, but they are still auction houses. There's auction houses all over this country. They're mom and pop auction houses. They wouldn't know Jacob Lawrence from Jacob's Ladder.
Right.
If you find something there, more than likely you and not too many bidders or not that much exposure, you will probably do well. You can use that formula for any artist. But first of all, you have to know, who do you think is the top artist in the country? Who do you like best? I never, I knew about Jacob Lawrence and Romare Beard, and I just use them because everybody knows who that is. But, well, anyway, I think that you should just get to know artwork, what you like, why you like what you like, and don't be afraid to buy it. I don't care who it is. Again, if it's good, somebody will hear about it or somebody will know about it, I feel. And this is how this came about.
You have a question, Freddie?
I'm going to say less than is running through my head. But as long as I've known you, Kerry, I don't know if I ever asked you, I know we talked a lot, we talk almost every day actually, how the bug got planted. to start acquiring stuff from artists and from the places you get it from instead of from Riches and Walmart. Did you tell me a story once about delivering mail to David Franklin?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I met quite a few people in the Atlanta area, just being a postman. Again, I just never thought to go to a retail outlet or a department store, anything like that looking, but I just been always so close to artists, and artists introduced me to other artists. Artists taught me, how to see their work, and I found that very helpful because I'm telling you, I didn't have an appreciation for John Biggers until I had a conversation with John Biggers, and he explained to me. Again, I'd never been had any kind of art education, but when they explained the metaphors, it became meaningful. I remember asking Jacob Lawrence, why the man's hand so big and he told me, well, I'm just, they were overemphasized. He was just trying to explain that this is a working class people. Okay, it clicked, I got it. I know working class anyway, I'm out there every day. But those are some very insightful things. How did I get the bug?
Yeah, just to start.
It was, I guess, how kids collect comic books or something. I got excited after I see someone depicting a story that resonates with me. It becomes my story as well. And then, everybody had a story. And then you respect what they do, whether you agree with it or not. And it just became contagious, something and I got excited from one find to the other. When I read something about this artist that I've never seen anywhere, but I've read it in a catalog, I knew about it from the Alain Locke books from the 40s, and I was just so happy to discover it. And it just became exciting to find works by African American artists.
Did you have a question?
He had a question. Yeah, that's right.
Wonderful exhibition, and congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
It's obvious that, you have a very eclectic collection. And as you tell your story, it's obvious that it was a kind of natural and almost organic process that got you to this point. But now that it's assembled, and particularly now that you see it up, are there any gaps that you see or feel, and is there any next phase of your team that you want to, that you already focused on to fill in those gaps, if any?
Well, are there any gaps? Probably. I mean, there are artists that, if you mean are there any artists that I really admire and we don't have, if that's a gap, sure it is. But I can't have it all. The eyes can never be satisfied, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. If we never get another piece, all is well. All is well. I just really do appreciate the things that I was able to get, and and the artists who allowed us to be caretakers of what we have. But yeah, I'm always looking for those things.
Well, first of all, to both of you, I'm enchanted. I think this is just the most wonderful thing I've ever seen.
Wow.
And thank you so much.
Oh, you're most welcome.
I'm curious from Tina, how you made your selections. If you looked and saw all of the work,
That's one I want to hear.
for this work, and once you had selected it, how you made the decision about how to install it. Is that too easy a question?
Okay, so
They want to hear her question.
the question is, how did I go about selecting the works? And then, how did I go about arranging the gallery, the works for installation? First of all, I'm an artist, number one. off the top. Okay, I came to this institution, pursuing a master's in African American studies, but an artist, studio artist, my undergraduate studio. So there's a part of me that I know operates intuitively, having been involved with this collection at CAU for as long as I have been. But even as I sit here and I speak with you, with Kerry, one of the things that keeps coming to me about Kerry and Betty is that, and for me it's a spiritual thing, but the way in which Kerry is so, there's a level of presence, the way he interacts with people and information, that somehow it really influences how he ends up selecting works to be in the collection. And I mean, and it was difficult from the perspective that there was so much to look at. And I know that when you go into a museum even, you really can't see everything. I mean, you're looking at things, you can't, but you think you're seeing everything, but you really can't see everything. And you almost really can't see it until it's all up and you say, oh my God, there's things that say, how did I not pick that? Where was that? I mean, how many times I've gone and then he'll say to me, well, I did bring that out after. Yeah, I'm gonna add that one. So that there is that aspect to me that in some ways, for me, it's like a dance in my head, in my communication that's being fed by experiences I've had. But even as I sit here, I think about Carl Christian's work. This woman, this collage there, and then this woman with these glasses. I know he's seen that woman somewhere on his route, or someone that felt like that, or it could be in his church. And to me, there's just information that comes off of the works that they've selected that I feel like I'm drawn into. So it did have a level of deja vu relative to Clark's collection. That's probably because what he said. I didn't know that he was exposed to the collection probably when I was down there. I started working there in '80, from '94 to '92, but really it started in 1980.
Yeah.
So
you took the day off that day I come up here.
But relative to the layout, I almost want to throw that back to you. Because I'd really like to know, what are you picking up or what are you seeing in terms of the interaction of the work?
Well, I've studied it and I'm not sure. That's really, I'm intrigued by the question, which is why I asked it of you. But I think this room here is stronger. All of this, not that you did that on purpose or not, but it seems like.
Right. Well, there was a sense that, because I do have a lot of males, there's a gender thing going on this side and here, and it's because there were certain relationships about the women, the young girls, then the social commentary. In fact, I wanted that painting that's on the outside. We couldn't get it in there. The one that's a real, like a unknown portrait that, normally one would think, well, we know that's a portrait, it's not part of, but somehow there's I think a really powerful relationship between that painting and those Stephanie Jackson's piece in terms of how we see the world, and it's that contrast and how Kerry really is drawn to certain things. So there's still something in those little girls' faces that we know about. And then there's something else in those faces that we know about. So it's that kind of energy that I'm playing off of as particularly as it relates to the figurative works. Dr. Coolington.
I'd like for Kerry to share with us one of his more memorable experiences with artists. You talked about you learn more from artists and your encounters with artists. So what are those encounters stand out to you?
Well, I'll maybe talk about some pleasant ones. Artists are unusual, people, most of them, and then there are a few actually sane people. I remember this one now, being here in Atlanta, I'm very close to Freddie and Kevin Cole and Larry Walker and, just these are Louis Del Sart, who I was around or had the opportunity to work in his studio for a while. Mildred Thompson. I love Mildred Thompson. How I even got to meet these artists, I was introduced by one of the artists within those circles, And I remember talking to Mildred, and I was telling her that I had found John Wilson's address, and I wanted to call him, but I was afraid. He was I was a big John Wilson fan, as well as Norma Morgan and some of the others, but these were senior artists. When I met John, he was in his 80s already, and but I just wanted to talk to him and just see, what it is. But people like Mildred would, when I canonize somebody, I put them up on this pedestal. She can always make the playing field just equal playing, And she would say, I said, well, Kerry, I said, Mildred, I'm nervous. I don't want to, he might fuss at me. And you're like, so what? But she said, baby, greatness is always accessible. If anybody treats you that way just because you want to find out about them and you calling to express your appreciation for them, that may not be anybody you even want to in your collection you want to deal with. But with just that nugget, I called him. And again, years later, we became really good friends. And to sit down and speak with the senior artists, they really put things in perspective. And he was up in Boston. I didn't know he was a member of the Communist Party, or they share with you and get you to understand the times, Mildred as well, very intelligent woman. I don't know how many different languages she spoke. We would come over and she would have friends that come to the house from Germany visiting, and she'll sit there all night and just translate back and forth. And just miss her so, but just so inspired. And she was such the creative spirit, because she played music and she wrote lyrics, and she could do it all, And she said, I may not be as good today as I was yesterday, but this is the best I am right now. So hey, if whatever goes, yeah, Donna Jackson is right here. So I've had a good, just great insight again with Ron Adams, who's a master printer. Then that term is thrown around so much, but he's truly a master printer who printed for the greatest. And I had the opportunity to pull a print with Ron Adams. Not that I pulled a print, I just helped him pull a proof or something. I understand the process. I don't want to, sound like I'm...
I want to highlight while you're saying that, Ron Adams' piece is the rooster there. This is an ink drawing piece that's there on the panel. And John Wilson, for the records, won the most awards in the 29-year span of the Atlanta University Art Annuals between 1942 and 1970. So he won the most awards in painting, basically painting and printmaking. Sorry, just one.
Oh, well, I think that may be enough stories, maybe.
All right. Freddie, did you have another question?
I just wanted to say one thing you probably didn't find out about Kerry when you were curating is that he's kind of a halfway mean guitar player. He used to play with Mildred.
Is that right? I don't think I knew that.
That's very true, Fred. He is a great guitar player. Good bluesman.
Oh, Lord.
One more?
Simple question. Where was your hostel?
I worked mostly, I worked downtown Atlanta for about 10 years, then I worked probably the next 20 years in Midtown. So, just over the years, I've had different routes, but it was in those areas, yes.
I
I missed the opening, but I guess making the decision to share it, you know, it's in your home, you've got these stories, and you have, I guess, personal stories and to your family. To say now that it's here at Clark Atlanta, to open it up to the public, was it a difficult decision, or I guess the process for your family to do that?
No, it wasn't a difficult decision. After I retired, I was so hungry to do something that I just enjoy doing. So with that in mind, I could focus on something, like that. Well, I was open to something like that, and I had no idea this was coming. And Brenda Thompson called me one day and asked me was I interested in doing something like that. That she and Larry she said that Larry wanted to do something for the people in Atlanta, So, I'm thinking, well, okay, we're going to feed the homeless or something. And so she said that she would like to do an exhibition of, your and Betty's artwork. I said, oh, that's, yeah, I'm cool. It's fine with me. So we were happy to do it.
It's beautiful,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, I think this wraps it up.
All righty.
I want to thank you again, you and C. Betty, for this wonderful opportunity, and it's going to be open through at least July 1st, possibly a little longer, but July 1st, thereabouts. So please return with family, friends, and young people. Okay, thank you.
All righty.
There's a lot that people can absorb from the works that the Davises have amassed, have acquired. They have really looked carefully at the creativity, the productivity of many African American artists across generations, across media, and with a really informed eye, which is something that really moved me as a curator in understanding the kinds of subjects that they've selected, be it abstraction, figurative works, sculpture. There's always a story to tell. They're narratives that are a part of each one of these works, so that when you're in front of them, you get that sensation. And more importantly, the title, This Postman Collects, really reflects the idea that, as an artist as well, I'm an artist and curator, where people are constantly saying, well, if I could only afford to buy, if I could only afford this work of art. Well, the Davises are not wealthy people in that context of what we know millionaires to be, but certainly what they are intensely passionate people who are deeply in love with their community, the people that they interface with, and as a result, they've made some. It's about values and sacrifice, and they've done this over a long period of time, and that's how we've arrived. They've arrived at this collection that they have, and that's what's exciting to see works that range from people like artists like Jacob Lawrence to some lesser-known artists that are represented in the collection as well. Local artists such as Kojo Griffin, Stephanie Jackson, Freddie Styles, the list goes on and on. And he really has made a tremendous, he and his wife, C. Betty, have made a tremendous effort. So that's what this show is about. And I hope people, when they come in and they see it, that they'll start thinking about how to even create relationships, make relationships, get to know some artists. Go to their studios, go to the exhibitions, find out why they are creating things. And so that's what makes this show, I think, really powerful. And imagine we're only looking at maybe 1/3 of their collection, 81 pieces. The whole idea when you're looking at artwork is to ask the question of how does the artwork make you feel? Each piece has an energy field, has a thought process that the artist took the time to conceptualize and put together. You know, it's kind of like, what am I going to put on this morning? And you go through this process of deciding what kind of clothes you're going to put together. Well, an artist goes through a process of, he or she has an idea, and they go through a process of how they want to conceptualize what they have in their mind. So that when the artwork meets the viewer then has the experience of how does this work make me feel? And based on that energy field that the artist has embedded in the artwork, that's really a question, that's something that the viewer experiences as far as that's concerned. But I think that each one of these works in here are endowed with a lot of energy and a lot of power. So I'm really interested in hearing what people think about the works that they're seeing in this collective.
Now, you had mentioned there's 81 pieces in the collection. How many pieces?
81 pieces in the exhibition, which is about 1/3 of what they have in their entire collection.
What are some of your favorite pieces?
Ooh, that's always hard because they're always different for me. Well, I love Stephanie Jackson's work. I mean, I'm a lover of her work, who resides in Athens, Georgia, UGA. So Topsy-Turvy, that's right here behind us. Yeah, that big piece is a tremendous piece. And of course, this monotype by the all-famous Romeo Bearden is a very powerful piece as well. He was a colorist, tremendous colorist, known as a collagist, but this is one of the pieces that I thought was really strong and representative. The piece by Lois Mailou Jones is one of my favorite pieces. And there's another one in this room by Calvin Burnett, Interracial Showtime, I think it's called, in the middle room. But this piece by Lois Mailou Jones, who taught for many decades at Howard University, tremendous colorist. She was originally a textile designer, the early part of the 20th century, and then moved on into fine art. And this is a fantastic seascape with a house on the hill there that I think is real powerful. The process for most museums are that artists are, they put together their portfolio in slides or CD, or, you know, ask the director, curator to go to their website to review their work, because the work has to be reviewed in a certain manner, and then whether that work really fits into the context and range and mission of the galleries of the museum is really going to be critical. Become an artist is, to quote the great David Hammonds, is like taking, what is it, an oath, it's like becoming a monk. You know, you do it because it's out of passion, and you don't enter it for monetary value as far as that's concerned. There are dynamics involved. With that, but you have to be in love with what it is that you're doing, and of course, then you have to balance that in terms of how you're going to survive and pay for your living. You know, how to support yourself. So the idea, of course, there are definitely, I mean, one has to be working every day. You have to be exercising your eyes, you know, becoming visually literate and understanding what's going on. But you definitely have to be passionate about what it is you're doing and seeing. I mean, even the great architects, many of them, they're sketching all the time. They're seeing all the time. I mean, it's part of any. I mean, if you're going to be a great musician, you're playing all the time. You're singing all the time. It's not just a sporadic or when the feeling moves you. So, yes, but this gallery is definitely dedicated to professional fine artists and some emerging artists that show a level of promise in a certain direction. And it's also, I want to make this very clear, that it's a teaching museum. It's here to facilitate faculty because of the subject matter. This collection was started during segregation, when African American artists did not have access to museums and galleries, and visitors couldn't go uptown to the High Museum of Art. I mean, that's a real important part of the history of development of this gallery here. It didn't just fall out of the sky. It was Hale Espacio Woodruff who did the murals out here. This is an altar of culture in the African American community of Atlanta. So this is Atlanta's African American Fine Art Museum, hands down. Don't get confused. It's all here. And of course, Spelman, which also has a collection, and they do some wonderful exhibitions as they have right now. But we anchor as far as the history is concerned, and I would hope that the community spends time getting to know this place, because again, you know, the media carries, you know, when you have money and you have media, it gets you uptown. It gets, if you're really in search of status, and that's real important to you, that gets you uptown. But to understand what culture and history is about, that's another level of status as well. But you have to be able to reckon that and understand what that is for your community, for educating your young students, our young people. And I think that's a real critical part of why we are here and intend to stay here. And hopefully with the support of communities, of our people in the community, that'll happen.